appreciate it. We, of course, are going to be recording our members' content every week for our tier 2 and tier 3 members on YouTube. We put out an extra bit of content. In this, we're going to be talking about the founder of Bumble, one of the online dating websites or apps, talking about how AI is going to improve the future of dating. I'm not sure that I agree it's an improvement, but we will be talking about that for our members. For now, though, for everyone else, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
Welcome. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richey, good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day, none other than comedian and actor extraordinaire Tehran Von Ghasri, who also touring the Middle East soon and very, very big fan of this program because of you and you. Every Thursday, 10 p.m. at Laugh Factory in Hollywood for Tehran Thursday. It's got its whole day named just for him. Top story of the day, hell of a thing. What if I told you a cop while on duty pulls up to a man's home, decides to shoot him in cold blood, put him in the trunk, and then drive him to the lake, put his body in the lake. Oh, by the way, he enlisted the help of somebody else in the process of this. Put it up, full mask. In Memphis, Officer Patrick Ferguson now faces federal charges for allegedly kidnapping and murdering a man while he was on duty, decided to then dispose of the body in a river. He was indicted on 8 counts of federal civil rights, kidnapping and weapons offenses for the deadly shooting that actually took place in 2021. There are additional details that will make your blood boil. Authorities say that on January 5th, 2021, Officer Ferguson went into a home belonging to 30-year-old Robert Lee Howard, abducted him at gunpoint, according to Law and Crime. He then forced Mr. Howard to the back of his squad car, shot him in the head at that point. The federal indictment states that Officer Ferguson then enlisted the help of a man named Joshua Rogers to cover up the murder, accessory after the fact. Rogers has also been charged in connection with the murder. He and Rogers allegedly chucked Mr. Howard's body into the Wolf River in Memphis, then took the car used to transport the body to a scrap metal dealership to then have it destroyed, thinking they were getting rid of the evidence. Howard's girlfriend reported him missing the next day. This was January 10th, 2021. Authorities found Howard's body. Ferguson and Rogers were arrested a few days afterwards. Investigators found search history on Ferguson's phone about how to clean up crime scenes, how to destroy evidence. This is all part of a probable cause affidavit obtained by the Memphis Commercial Appeal. Now, here's the other thing. A state grand jury, they did charge with first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, official misconduct, and official oppression. The state also charged Rogers with accessory after the fact, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. Rogers also faces federal accessory and evidence tampering charges for allegedly conspiring with Ferguson to hide evidence of the shooting. Now, police have not yet released their theory of a motive for the killing. When Ferguson was arrested, he gave up his Miranda rights. I need you to hear this. He gave up his Miranda rights, so he waives Miranda and confessed. Let me say that again. He waived Miranda and confessed that he went to Howard's home, forced him into the back of his police car, and procured Rogers' help to move the body. Ferguson posted a $400,000 bond in June 2023 and is currently awaiting trial. How does this individual confess to the crime? It is an egregious crime, no one would argue. He's in a position of public trust. And you know, my philosophy is very simple here. If you are in a position of public trust, responsibility should be higher, not lowered for you. That's how it works if you're a psychiatrist or a medical doctor or any other profession. You have a higher standard of accountability and responsibility, not a lower one, except in the profession of policing. Only profession where you actually get a lower standard of accountability for your actions adverse to the public trust. So he confesses, it's egregious, and he's allowed to post a $400,000 bond. Police released no theory as to why he did this. Sounds like a hit, just all context included. What is this about? How did this happen? How does a Memphis police officer get caught up in doing this? You think this is the first time he has done it? With the ease of a mob hitman. Where's the investigation into his historical dynamics? Where are the elements of his, well, let's just say use of force history with the department? None of these things are available for the public record. Why? I got questions. I don't accept stories just based on face value. There are many more stories to this. No theory whatsoever. That means you have no motive? All right. Tehran, this is a hell of a story. One of the most ironic stories when you actually start digging into the why, because you can't find one. And then he gets a bond after admitting to a heinous crime, and you can't find a reason why he was still allowed to have a bond. Dear brother, what are your thoughts?
When I first heard about this story, I thought it was the script for Training Day 2.
Exactly.
Because this is a movie. This isn't a real life story. This is a police officer who clearly abused their power. And we use the term allegedly because, of course, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. But he waived Miranda. Right. He confessed to the crime. There isn't a lot of alleged identity to this crime. I know that's not a word, but this shouldn't be a story. So the idea that I have is, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And most importantly, how is he out in the street? If there was a motive, and this is why we get motive when it comes to crime, because then we can say this happened, and therefore we can determine the likelihood of it happening again. We don't have a motive in this case. That means there's a high likelihood it could happen again. That's why we keep hitmen in jail. So how is this hitman back on the streets?
So well said, dear brother. Naturally, we're going to stay on top of this story, bring you updates as they come. I will hopefully provide an update later this week. All right, compare and contrast. Brett Favre, welfare queen, stole a whole bunch of money, allegedly, that was supposed to be used for poor citizens inside of his state. He gets a slap on the wrist, if you could call it that. He basically returned some of the money. There's a contrast here. Put it up full mass. So let me dig into this. A former NBA player gets a much stiffer punishment than Brett Favre. Former Boston Celtics player Glen Big Baby Davis has found the silver lining to his punishment after being convicted of participating in defrauding the NBA's Players' Health and Benefit Welfare Program. This is a plan for players. Davis and other former players were indicted and convicted for submitting falsified medical claims for procedures that did not take place in order to collect kickback payments. Is that wrong? Yes. Is that illegal? Yes. Should he have a penalty for it? Yes. Davis, according to the documents, made a fraudulent claim of $159,000. It totaled to $159,000. He was found guilty of committing healthcare fraud, conspiracy to make false statements, conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud and wire fraud. There it is. Despite facing up to 20 years behind bars on May 9th, he was sentenced to 40 months in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and ordered to pay $80,000 in restitution. Upon release, the 2008 NBA championship winner will be required to complete a financial management course and undergo mandatory drug treatment. Okay. Sounds fair to me. Sounds fair to me. That's a fair sentence. He may even get some of that reduced based on good behavior. There seems to be the possibility of an underlying drug issue, so they have an order for rehabilitation. All right? Put him up, full mass. But him, Brett Favre. So fans are somewhat divided on the racial double standard. But let me highlight some dynamics. Counterpart Brett Favre not facing a similar outcome after being caught in Mississippi in the state fraud case, April 2020, 2 months after 6 people were indicted in a wide-ranging scheme, including the state's former Department of Human Services chief. Let's put this up. As one ex-user online pointed out, Big Baby just got 40 months in prison for frauding the NBA out of $80,000 in medical benefits. Brett Favre frauded Mississippi welfare recipients out of $700,000, and he hasn't been charged. Both got caught around the same time, end quote. Further reminder of the fraud controversy. So by 2023, Brett Favre and 38 others were listed as defendants. This was a civil lawsuit filed by the state's Department of Human Services, excuse me. We covered it from day one, alleging that 77 million of taxpayer money from the TANF program, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families funds, were used to line the pockets of multimillionaires like Favre and other individuals. An audit uncovered that the former Green Bay Packers star received 1.1 in total, 1.1 million in total of TANF funds. For what? For speeches he never gave. First of all, you got to understand the ideology here and the privilege at play. Favre had the easiest job in the world. Find a damn microphone and say something. We're paying you as a speaker. He didn't even do that part. If he would have done anything in light of contract service, meaning he didn't have to do a good job, hell, he didn't even have to do it more than one time. He could have simply stated, listen, I'm Brett Favre, I'm worth that much for one speech. He did nothing. He did nothing. Then the money is coming from the taxpayers and is meant to go back to the individuals who paid into the system. And now they need an opportunity because they hit a bump in the road like we all do. But he lines his pockets. There's more. At that time, he was in cahoots with the University of Southern Mississippi. That's not alleged. We have the documentation for this. That's his alma mater. His daughter went there as well. So he was in cahoots with the university to build a new indoor practice volleyball facility on campus. He was accused of knowing that the $5 million put toward the construction and another $1.7 million for the development of a concussion drug were from the misappropriated funds. So old Brett had repaid the state $1 million, but a new court filing from the Mississippi auditor is seeking an additional $729,790 in interest. And that individual is a Republican in Mississippi, but he don't play the radio. He don't give a damn about your football habits or your heroes in the game. He literally said none of that matters to him. He owes that money plus interest. Why would the state ever give this man all this money as a loan? So here's the thing. As it stands now, multiple people have been indicted at the highest levels of government in Mississippi. You have phone recordings, you have text messages. We have read all these things on the record. If you want to find it, you can find those shows. We posted them on our YouTube and our Facebook watch pages. It's there. All the evidence is there. There's way more evidence against Brett Favre than against the basketball player who probably had an underlying issue and decided to steal money through a fraud scheme. But here we are. Compare and contrast. So is it a racial element? It could be racial and it could be Mississippi, corruption. It could also be the element of football. It could also be classism inside of classism. It's a lot of could be's here, but here's what we know for a fact. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair to the taxpayers. It's not fair to those in Mississippi who needed that money. And it's not fair that he gets no penalty for what he has done, but everybody around him, well, they're dropping dimes daily. All right, dear brother, thoughts here.
So, Dr. Richie, are you saying that there might be racism in Mississippi?
Exactly.
I'm shocked.
Rare.
I didn't know about that. I thought Mississippi Burning was a cooking show.
Exactly.
Of course there's racism in Mississippi. Of course there's placism in Mississippi. And it's not because it's Mississippi, it's because it's been allowed so long in that state. The idea of it is, in the last story, we saw how the blue wall of silence trumped the race element. And this one, we went right back to that race element. Clearly, Brett Favre is out and about because of his race and his place in society in Mississippi. How do we know this? Because the same thing actually happened with Brett Favre in the NFL. We know that sexual harassment is wrong. And when players are punished for sexual harassment, that's what should happen. Deshaun Watson, black quarterback, got his career basically taken away, and some think that him returning to the NFL wasn't okay and should have been even longer. Brett Favre went through several sexual harassment allegations, 2008, 2011, even before that, and nothing ever happened to him. He's always come from a place of privilege. And in this case, we know for a fact that this money was taken. And as you kindly pointed out, he had a very easy job. Not that speakers do an easy job. Anyone who speaks in public, it's obviously an amazing job, but we didn't expect much from Brett Favre. We expected him to go up there, just be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Couple of those and get off the mic. He didn't even do that.
And it would have been justified. That's right.
And it would have been justified. He took the money. And then on the flip side, big baby Glen Davis, he goes to jail. None of us are arguing that he shouldn't have gone to jail. We're saying he should have gone to jail. But even in Plessy versus Ferguson, it was separate but equal. This is not equal. This is just separate and unequal. And that's why it's not fair.
Very well said, dear brother. And naturally, we're going to follow up, as we always do, with this Brett Favre situation. Okay. I told you so. On the situation where an airman, a senior airman, was shot by a deputy in Florida, when the first video came out and the sheriff said, oh, he did not cover the peephole, and he was not at the wrong address. I said, something doesn't sound right about that. Because why would a trained airman who's FaceTiming a young lady say, I can't see who's knocking on my door like this? She says, the way he said it, it was as if the deputy was covering the peephole. Well, he wasn't covering the peephole. He was standing away, hiding from it. Do you see the game the sheriff was playing when he did that? All right, let me remind you of what happened. Here it is.
Are they fighting or something?
He's saying that it happens frequently.
Okay.
But this time it sounded like it was getting out of hand.
Sheriff's office, open the door. Sheriff's office, open the door. Step out. Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
It's over there.
Drop the gun!
I don't have it.
312, shots fired. Suspect down. Do not move!
Suspect of what? Put it up full mass. It was no suspect. There was no time for him to drop the weapon that was a non-threat. It was on his side. I need to highlight a couple of things here. The deputy is trained to only point his gun when there is an active threat that may need or may warrant a gun. The airman, the senior airman, is trained to only point his gun when there is an active threat where it may warrant a gun. Both of these gentlemen received the same mandate in their training. One of them adhered to their mandate. That's the one who's dead. He has the right to bear arms. I thought in Florida, officers really like the fact that people have the right to bear arms. But when you're bearing arms and you happen to be a young black male, you are now automatically interpreted as a criminal through the perspective of that officer. His gun was no threat. It was not pointed, and he has the constitutional right to bear it. My law school professor would say when the Constitution says you can do something, That means it's extra legal for you to do. Florida authorities have now released the body cam footage showing the tragic moment when a white sheriff's deputy fatally shot a black U.S. senior airman during a disturbance call at Fort Walton Beach apartment complex, which Attorney Ben Crump continues to claim. He continues to say this was simply a matter of them being at the wrong unit. Atlanta Black Star obtained official police video of the May 3rd shooting that killed 23-year-old Air Force senior airman Mr. Roger Fortson. After the deputy was met in the parking lot by a witness who apparently called police and led the officer to apartment 1401, which is shown as the number outside of Fortson's unit. Can somebody get me the name of this witness? Inside, Fortson was chatting with his girlfriend on FaceTime. Routine, they have a conversation. Before he was shot, almost as soon as he opened his front door. Moments before the gunfire, the Okaloosa County Sheriff deputy was told by a woman in the parking lot that, quote, it sounded like something was getting out of hand inside of 1401. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. A random individual saying, oh, it's getting out of hand there. Knock on the door, you hide so that he can't see that it's law enforcement. There's no reason for you to hide. This is not a high-risk warrant. What are you hiding for? What are you hiding for? There's more. She then told the officer that 2 weeks earlier, she or a neighbor was passing by the same unit when she heard someone yelling, shut up. Wait a minute. That's illegal? That means I should have been arrested 1 hour before I got on this show because I had to tell somebody that personally. Personal story. Put it back up. So that's not illegal. That's an argument. Sometimes men have arguments. Sometimes relationships get into arguments. None of this is against the law. None of this makes it high risk. Then the person says, there was the sound of someone being slapped. What? The story just gets more seemingly embellished. However, she admitted to the officer that she wasn't exactly sure where the shouting was coming from at the time. You see, that's the part. She wasn't exactly sure where any of this was actually happening. It was just noise, people, possible physical contact. There's more. On the day in question, however, she said she had no doubts that the disturbance was coming from inside of Fortson's apartment. At that point, she tells the deputy that the unit is located on the 4th floor, down the hall from the elevator. Once upstairs, the deputy is shown approaching Fortson's door, listening quietly for a few seconds before banging on the door. At this time, he did not announce himself as a cop, but instead positioned himself to the side of the door where he could not be seen through the peephole. So what do we have here? I want you to get the situation, the nuance of this. He doesn't announce that he's the police. He knocks like he's SWAT, all right? He knocks like he's angry. He knocks on the door, does not announce he's the police. He hides so that the young airman cannot see who has just knocked at his door. The airman is known for being in the military. He doesn't know who's doing this. He doesn't know if this is a setup, an attack, or anything. So he tells the young lady on FaceTime, I can't see who's at the door. I'm going to get my gun. He gets his gun, he puts it on his side. He doesn't walk toward the door with the gun drawn because he's trained not to do that. So he puts it on his side. There's more. She tells the deputy that the unit is located on the 4th floor, down the hall from the elevator. Once upstairs, deputy shown approaching, listening quietly. Seconds later, Fortson can be heard on the footage, possibly mentioning the police, but not yelling. But no yelling could be heard from the airman who did not open the door. There is no disturbance active. Officer cannot independently assert this. At this point, the deputy knocks again, and for the first time, he decides to announce himself as a sheriff's deputy. But there was still no response from inside. And this is probably when he went back to retrieve the weapon so that he could protect himself in case. The deputy then knocked a third time while stating more forcefully. Sheriff's officer opened the door. The deputy continued to stand out of the view of the peephole until Fortson slowly opened the door while simply holding the gun in his right hand with it pointed to the floor as he is trained to do. Suddenly, the deputy can be heard saying, "Step back," before quickly drawing his weapon and firing 6 shots rapidly into Fortson's chest. As part of the investigation, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement said it would focus on whether the reported disturbance that led to the shooting actually occurred at Fortson's residence. FDLE officials said the probe will seek to determine whether the use of force was justified and scrutinize the 911 call and the person's reason for making the emergency call in the first place. The footage shows Fortson never raised his weapon toward the officer. Instead, Fortson held up his hand, presumably to protect himself as the officer aimed his gun. The 6 slugs dropped Fortson to the floor while the officer continued to yell at him, saying, "Drop the gun." Video shows the dying man telling the officer the location of his gun, saying, "It's over there. I don't have it." Suspect down, the deputy then told dispatch, "There is no suspect, deputy. You have not established there's a suspect, deputy. He could have been a victim, deputy." Later saying he needed an ambulance later. As other deputies arrived, the officer at the scene told them, "We're good, we're good." "You're good?" Put him up, Ben Crump. My dear brother and friend, prominent civil rights attorney Ben Crump issued a statement to Law and Crime saying, quote, he had a gun as soon as he opened the door, the deputy said, setting the narrative that emerged initially from the sheriff's office. In the video, law enforcement could be heard demanding anyone else in the department to come up with their hands up, but no one responded. At least one deputy could be heard saying clear, calling Fortson's killing and execution. That also violated the civil rights, saying there's no question that the officer acted with impulse and a lack of proper training when he shot and killed Roger within seconds of opening the door. Fortson had been stationed at the Special Operations Wing at Hulbert Field when he lived off base at the apartment complex where 6 bullets from a county sheriff's deputy in Florida ended his life. Days after the shooting, Crump held a news conference with the family at the Hilton Garden Inn in Fort Walton Beach to address the shooting while criticizing police officials for portraying the shooting as an act of self-defense. Quote, "We have to clear this narrative," Crump said, while also accusing the sheriff's department of not being fully transparent about what happened. Previously, Crump said the sheriff's office described Fortson as an armed man, but never mentioned that Fortson had his gun pointed down at the floor when he was shot. Okay, where's the NRA? This is an appropriately armed individual. He's inside of his home, has the right to protect himself. He did not unlawfully point the gun at a law enforcement official. He's dead. What's the NRA? Or the pro-veteran groups? Or the pro-veteran groups who stand up for their own? Where are you? Saying nothing. Because this young black male does not fit your conclusive narrative about how this should work. But I guarantee if it was the other way around, this narrative would be proclaimed. So here we are. You have a dead airman. The evidence is very clear. This officer should have been arrested at least for criminal negligence, involuntary manslaughter, at the very least, but nothing. All right. Tehran, this story boils my blood. What are your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, of course, I want to send my condolences to the family of Airman Roger Fortson, because this is a sad tale, especially when your child, a 23-year-old, is enlisted in the armed forces, and thank you for your service, isn't killed overseas, isn't killed in the line of duty, but is killed at home by those who are supposed to protect and serve the community. This is especially sad. Now, my understanding of this is that none of those NRA, Green Party group, Second Amendment group type people who wear the black flags showed up to protest this Second Amendment rights in the state of Florida. Nobody came to the rescue of this young man's honor. And my understanding is that we're within the rights in Florida to have that gun, especially inside your property, inside your own home. The police officer clearly gave a false narrative of how the proceedings went. And even during that false narrative, it was an incorrect way of handling the situation. Now, thankfully, we have body camera, which always reminds me, how was the world like before body camera? We have body cameras that show that this man was well within his rights, well within not only just state rights, but constitutional, federally executed rights, and was still shot down in his home. I don't want to blame the person outside, the supposed witness who heard all the things, because we should have enactment of see something, say something. That's not the case. And being a police officer is a very dangerous job. It is stressful. It is extremely, extremely cautious worthy. We don't need scary police. You're not a good officer. What you did was a crime. You killed a man in cold blood. You did not follow your own training, which is set out for your safety and for the safety of others. You did not follow the law, so you should go to jail, directly to jail. Don't pass go, don't collect $200. And by the way, while we're finding out the name of the witness for Dr. Ritchie, can we also find out the name of the person that Dr. Ritchie had to yell at earlier today? Can we find the name of that person? Because I need to find out who that person was. I need to know.
That's hilarious, man. I appreciate you, dear brother, and your levity to the situation as well, because it's you cry, and we try to balance these realities. But they are difficult to balance, and we appreciate the balance you bring, man. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
Today we're going to be speaking with Cenk Uygur, host of The Young Turks and also author of the new book, Justice is Coming.
Author of the brand new book that we have here, Justice is Coming.
How progressives are going to take over the country and America is going to love it.
His new book is out now, Justice is Coming.
Cenk Uygur, he's got a book out.
I encourage every progressive and non-progressive to read it.
Very interesting, very thought-provoking.
2 main ideas. 1, that progressives are correct on these kind of policy issues. And 2, America is actually a very progressive country.
And it's a powerful read.
This will be banned in Florida. By the way, that would be kind of awesome. There's no question we're going to win in the long run. The country's that progressive.
You have given me hope, Cenk.
I do see you as a voice of reason on the left, and I hope people will check out your book.
It's for outsiders, and it's for progressives and populists that are looking to overthrow this system.
You need this book in your house.
They tell you that change is not possible, hope is not possible, justice is not possible. Do not believe their lies. Change always wins. And then we take off like a rocket. tyt.com/justice.
All right, welcome back. A lot of show left. Let me read some of these amazing comments. I thank you, I thank everybody for joining the convo. Dragons don't know I'm not real. Bacon says, it's a good thing criminals are dumb, but the fact people still Google stuff like that on their personal devices is beyond me. And he's the police. He's supposed to know how evidence works. I mean, he was operating as if somebody in the police department told him to do, that may have been exactly what happened. He was operating as if he was protected, or at least thought he was. Galfar. Have murderers gotten that damn good at murder, or have our cops gotten that bad that it takes 3 years to bring charges against this man? Once again, another nuance that doesn't make sense. You are correct. And Mo Fury. It could very well be racial, but Davis made the mistake of stealing from rich people. Favre made the mistake, took the money from poor people. I think that is a hell of an observation socially that you have made in the construct of our society. Very astute observation. And Ron Moore. I'd accept pay-per-view charges to see Dr. Rich's story and tell us someone shut up. Listen, I will tell you, he was a Republican, so you would have been proud of the moment. I guarantee you that. All right, Scott Smith, member 19 months. Dr. Richie, thank you for helping to cultivate the wonderful community here at Indisputable. I've made great friends, and we always support each other. Beautiful thing. I love to hear that. Raising the collective consciousness of the world by way of unifying with each other is the way to go, regardless of political ideology. You'll be surprised how much ideology separates us when other things outside of ideology may actually unite us, all right? So it's a good thing to be united. Tony Harris, welcome to Indisputable. James Thompson, gifted 10 Indisputable memberships. Once again, James Moneybag Thompson, all right? My apologies for not putting in your whole name last time. We appreciate all that you do. Welcome, Woke Dragon. Welcome, JF. Welcome, Emmanuel Lynch, LT HUD, Laurie, I think TX of Texas, Nikki, Mishia Jackson, Introvertly Next, Topher Barrow. Also, Radiant Goddess, welcome to Indisputable. And James Thompson, member for 21 months. Shopping for noodles, rice, beans, and a spam. The prices, cat food is way out there. Love the peeps here on my trumpet plate, America the Beautiful. That's right. And Twitch. Cascadia Hermit, why do people think their internet search history is somehow invisible? He was operating like he was supposed to get away with it, okay? All right, I got something for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
I would like to see the sign that says no hammocks.
We've got a whole.
Where's the no hammock sign?
We got a whole list of these.
No.
Man,
I can see you can't see me.
If you don't come out of that.
I'm not here.
On the police. No.
What?
Oh my God.
No.
Oh my God.
That's not me.
Well, oh my God.
I won't be stopped. I said I won't be stopped. You see that?
Oh my God.
How are you gonna get it out of there, man?
Yeah? I'm like an anaconda.
Oh my God.
What the?
You're gonna give us concussion. You
No,
can't
I
have a
have
hammock in here, dude.
Come on, just drive the bus. Everyone's got places to go.
I don't think we can. Can you get down so we can get where we're going, please?
What?
Dude, please.
I'm staying in the hammock.
I'm not moving this bus.
You know what? There's AC in here.
Dude, get down.
I'm not getting down.
Get down.
The bus is not moving.
Get
So you
down.
out of the hammock.
Get down. We have places to
Get
go.
out of the hammock.
Put it up for a mass. What has the world come to when a man cannot take a portable hammock and enjoy a bus ride? Listen, that obviously this is disruptive, okay? It's disruptive. Now, on the scale of 1 to 10 Karenicity here, maybe a 3, inconvenience an 8. He didn't harm anybody or call the police on unarmed black men. But I was talking with my producer, Jordan, because I said, listen, this is a very creative Karen here. And he said, well, Doc, actually, this has happened before. So he has seen it twice before. And one time, a person attempted to do this on a commercial airplane. So that Obviously, that can't work. But Tehran, this could have worked, brother, if the bus driver would have just given it a chance here.
I'm so sorry. I'm busy trying to order a hammock right now. What were you saying? I'm so sorry.
Exactly.
That this man is brilliant. I don't understand what the problem is. Let me just, thank goodness, Amazon delivers. Okay.
Right.
This Carrington clearly wanted to cocoon himself on a bus ride. This isn't a Karen. This is inconvenience, but it is also much more showing of our state of mental health and mental health care in this country. Clearly, there's some mental health issues in this specific situation. Either that or he is an extremely famous YouTuber and we just don't know who he is. Like right now, he's getting 100 million views and made $100 million off that. And we're laughing at him. He's laughing at all of us on the way to the bank.
That's
so
right.
Either way.
All right, and listen, this may be a new business opportunity for somebody. Let's have buses that allow only people who travel inside of the hammock. I mean, that may be a thing. Okay, hell of a dynamic. A man decides to pull out a gun on an Uber driver because, well, he says he was protecting his daughter somehow. Put it up full mass. Florida, all right? Florida Army veteran Sean Hollenbeck says he did nothing wrong for pulling an AR-15 on an Uber driver dropping off his daughter. He has been charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and aggravated assault with a weapon last week. Keep his picture up. I wonder what would have happened if the Uber driver, obviously threatened by a man walking up to him with an AR-15, what if the Uber driver just shot him? What would have happened then? Do we say that, well, this Army veteran had the right to point an AR-15 at an Uber driver? According to authorities and the unnamed driver, the driver picked up a younger white female in Pensacola, drove her to a home in Milton, Florida. When he pulled up shortly before 11 p.m., he said Mr. Hollenbeck ran outside armed with a rifle and screamed at him to get out of the car while pointing his gun and threatening to shoot, which would have killed him. When the driver exited the car, Mr. Hollenbeck ordered him to lie on his stomach on the road and forced the driver to take out his driver's license. After taking pictures of his ID, license plate, Uber account, and the address where he picked up his daughter, Hollenbeck let the driver go. Put him up again. So this individual pulls out a gun, basically robs the person, takes his personal belongings, threatens to kill him, terroristic threats. See, all of these are crimes. All of these are criminal activities. The driver called authorities shortly afterward. In an interview with local authorities, Hollenbeck said, quote, he was afraid of his daughter's safety and didn't know who she was with or that she had left without permission. The vehicle was completely unmarked and I had no idea. In fact, in my mind, this was not good. And everybody knows what's going on in this country with fentanyl and child trafficking and raping, terrible stuff. Sir, if that would have been a drug dealer, you would have been dead, sir. If they didn't get you then, they would have pulled up later and got you. You know good and damn well this individual wasn't about that life, okay? There's more. So they got him. Here's his mug shot. They arrested him. He was arrested the following night. In a later police report, his daughter said he was, quote, this is what his daughter said now, quote, acting crazy, waving his gun around and yelling, end quote. Mr. Hollenbeck has repeatedly cited his Army veteran status and maintains he did nothing wrong. Quote, in this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. If this goes to trial, I look forward to it because I want to get 12 moms and dads on that jury and judge if what I did was fair. because I called for law enforcement and I didn't get them. So many online comments do not share his sentiment. One person said, quote, we don't care what this highly regarded Army veteran has to say. How about you interview the Uber driver who was just doing his job, end quote. Another commenter posted, the fact that he doesn't understand how wrong what he did was proves he's a danger to the community. And don't use your status as a vet to try to make this okay. Being a vet doesn't give you more rights than anyone else. One more pointed out, guy says he's innocent until proven guilty. He shouldn't afford that Uber driver the same right when detaining him at gunpoint. All very good points here. Tragedy, right? Well, this is what privilege out of control gets you. The feeling, the sentiment inside of your heart that you can just do what you choose to do to another human being and there can be no repercussion. It's a calculated risk that you made, sir. You decided to make that risk. Nobody did it for you. You knew what could happen because you had the capacity of understanding. You knew what could happen if you were completely wrong about your behavior. And you know, how about this? How about just ask a damn question? Hey, what's going on here? How about that? Because the AR-15 doesn't make you big, bad, and bold. Walking up and saying, listen, I need to understand what's going on here before anything else happens is understandable. Uber driver would have understood that, all right? Even if your daughter didn't. Okay, my dear brother, hell of a thing. This man literally kidnapped a whole human being, held him at gunpoint. Like this whole thing, SWAT should have been raining down on his home that night.
Well, I'm gonna be very fair. He says, I'm not a parent. I'm not a father, so I don't know how it feels, but I do understand where a father would come from to protect their daughter. I do understand having weapons to protect your daughter. You watch movies like Sounds of Freedom, they put these ideas of human trafficking. You turn on the news and it's fentanyl and honestly abuse. Honestly, he had no idea where his daughter was. And here's this strange person dropping his daughter off at his home. Come out, he's angry, he's hot, he pulled out the gun. I understand everything he did. I also understand he's a criminal, and that's why we have laws. He is a criminal. I understand everything he did was extremely illegal. He came out with an AR-15, put the man on the ground, held him by gunpoint, and got his license. Things that you're not even allowed to do, by the way, as a police officer, even though police officers do this. You live in a no identified state, sir. Like you had no right to do this. He is a criminal. You also go to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Straight to jail. So I understand. I just don't condone. Number two, his daughter's a snitch. Okay, his daughter went there and just snitched all the snitch. He's crazy. He's doing this. But I do want people to remember he was afraid for his daughter, and that's what he said. And I too am afraid for his daughter because of him. Someone called Child Protective Services while you're at it. This man had an AR-15 and was ready to go off on somebody with no information because of a heat of a moment situation. His daughter's in trouble. That's a whooping.
You made a great point with the understanding some action does not negate the criminal activity itself. And here's the other dynamic, and I don't understand the severity of what he did, but here's the other dynamic that's really interesting. I want you to imagine if this was a black father who did this, right? And this black father went out and did all of this. It's kidnapping, it's holding a hostage, it's menacing, which is the gunpoint issue.
White female Uber driver, by the way. White female Uber driver, black father. Go.
Right, there you go. So now, not only do you get the criminal indictment, you also have the question, well, why was the daughter leaving your house anyway? What kind of father are you to engage in this kind of behavior? Where's Child Protective Services in this matter? We need to get this poor girl away from this deranged human being, but none of that is part of the narrative currently. All right, we'll bring you updates. Guaranteed updates will come. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Now I'm gonna do something very different here and read some one-star reviews of the Young Turks on Apple Podcasts. Donnie Franchise said, pretty much it's like listening to a trash compactor. Someone else said, negative, anti-American propaganda. And others said, out of context, misquotes, typical leftists who are afraid to debate, just smear. These two would be perfect for CNN or MSLSD. Well, Donnie, you might have a point, because I feel like a trash compactor right now after taking in all those garbage reviews. But thanks for listening anyway. We are, in fact, unapologetically progressive. And if you're not ready for bold commentary, then we're not the show for you. On the Young Turks, we speak up about the issues that matter, and we want to make positive change happen. And now here's why we actually do the show. Mariel Morales said, found this podcast from the true crime podcast, Fruit Loops, and other great progressive podcasts. I've become an instant fan of the Young Turks. Great conversation, great takes, very well composed, factual podcast, very informative. Love to hear that. Z55 said, it's a joy to experience such awareness and intelligence from fascinating people. And Anna is gorgeous and brilliant. Apparently I'm just fascinating, but I'll take it. Paul for Progress said, news well delivered. Appreciate it. KOOK said, Democrats and Republicans are fair game for TYT. And if Anna or Cenk provide disinformation about anything, they will admit they made a mistake and correct it. We appreciate you noticing that we are honest. To people who actually listen to the substance of the show, thank you. Your listenership supports what we do. Leave a 5-star rating for the Young Turks on Apple Podcasts. Let's take the ratings back from the trolls.
Today we're going to be speaking with Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks and also author of the new book, Justice is Coming.
Author of the brand new book that we have here, Justice is Coming.
How progressives are going to take over the country and America is going to love it.
His new book is out now, Justice is Coming.
Cenk Uygur, he's got a book out. I encourage every progressive and non-progressive to read it.
Very interesting, very thought-provoking.
Two main ideas. One, that progressives are correct on these kind of policy issues. And two, America is actually a very progressive country.
And it's a powerful read.
This will be banned in Florida. By the way, that would be kind of awesome.
There's no question we're going to win in the long run.
The country's that progressive?
You have given me hope, Cenk. I do see you as a voice of reason on the left, and I hope people will check out your book.
It's for outsiders, and it's for progressives and populists that are looking to overthrow this system.
You need this book in your house.
They tell you that change is not possible, hope is not possible, justice is not possible. Do not believe their lies. Change always wins. And then we take off like a rocket. TYT.com/justice.
About the shirt you're wearing.
Pretty much speaks for itself. What's the penalty for treason? Death. Everything was phenomenal under Donald Trump, and now it's Obama calling the shots right now. It ain't Biden.
So it's Obama calling the shots?
I believe so. None of this would be happening if they hadn't stolen the 2020 election from Trump and we the people.
All right, welcome back. Always good to be with you. Let me remind everyone that the lifeblood of TYT is you, not corporations, not corporate interest. We're not accountable to a Fortune 500 company, never would we be. We are accountable to you. Part of that process is you joining the train of truth, all right? Become a member, it's real simple, real easy, all right? You can go directly to tyt.com/team, or you can just hit that join button right there on YouTube, all right? That is a great looking graphic. Okay, thank you to production. All right, we got a lot of comments. I'm kind of pressed for time. I'll read as many as I can. Dex says, how many people did this fool make late for appointments, work, etc.? You're an indisputable. You made it. That's right. That's right. You made it. That's the part. It sounded like a lot of people on that bus. When you started hearing everyone in unison say, listen, please get out. I'm like, damn, it's a lot of people on that bus. All right. Okay. And Dragons Don't Know I'm Not Real Baker says, hard to knock a good hammock. It's very comfy. And then I got this great picture. Unfortunately, I don't think we can show the picture. I wish I could. Cena Hoggaboom says, Dr. Richard, this guy's maxing and relaxing at Washington Park Cemetery outside of St. Louis, Missouri. WPC is a neglected African-American historical cemetery. My father's people are buried there. This is no joke. These fools think they can do it wherever they want. So literally he's at this historical cemetery site and there are 2 trees and he's like on top of a grave just chilling, all right? Obviously, I would feel highly disrespected if he did on top of my loved one's tombstone. Okay, and Bernie the Kiwi Dragon says, I dub thee bus hammock Karen. Snack _ Panther, laughing my A off at Caterpillar Male Karen. That's right. And Twitch, Agnostic Sister. I just pulled the tie holding him up, talking about how to get the hammock. Just pull the string and all right. And also Melanin Be Poppin' Dragon. When did kidnappers begin taking the victims back to their home? Sorry. That's such a great freaking point. When did kidnappers start dropping you off at the house? There you go. The man got to be convicted. You got to convict him. All right. Judges, well, they decided to dismiss a case involving a botched raid, aggressive, violent behavior of the police, put the woman up for a mass who was the victim of this. In Dallas, Miss Karen Jemerson was mistakenly targeted during a no-knock raid. The cops were at the wrong house. This was roughly 5 years ago. She filed a lawsuit. Then she had filed a second appeal after her civil lawsuit was thrown out by the Fifth Circuit in April. So let me give you details on the raid and I will give you the update. So the blundered raid on Karen Jemerson's home in Texas on March 27, 2019 led to a terrifying ordeal where SWAT team troops smashed the windows of her home, detonated a flash bang grenade, forced the woman and her children to the floor at gunpoint before realizing their mistake. The lawsuit claims that Lieutenant Mike Lewis had assembled the raid team at the wrong house when he realized the error at the moment. He then did nothing to confirm the address of the real target, a suspected stash house to the right of where the officers were assembled. Jemerson's house was on the cops' left. A bright porch light at a neighboring home made it difficult for police to see the address. And instead of taking a closer look, Lewis guessed wrong and chose the house on the left. The lawsuit states this is called negligence. Negligence in this formation may not be criminal, but it definitely is civil, right? You did actions that led to the detriment of another. You did not do it intentionally, but you were negligent. Simple. So the warrant indicated that there should be or should have been a fence blocking the front porch. Why? It's in the warrant. And garage of the suspect house, however, the residence they went to didn't have a fence. It did not have a front porch. It did not have a garage. All of these things are described in the warrant itself. Instead, the officers marched up a wheelchair ramp. It's not in the warrant to describe the home. They marched up a wheelchair ramp. None of them say, hey, fellas, it doesn't say wheelchair ramp on the warrant here. That was never mentioned in arrest papers and reached the front door of Jemerson's home before crashing inside as the children were sound asleep, traumatized those babies and the mother. You had this cacophony of shattered glass, explosions, shouting, and weapons being echoed through the house, jarring everyone awake to a nightmare with guns aimed at them. Jemerson who had just gotten out of the shower, was confronted by officers while still in the bathroom. She was ordered to get face down. It was only then that one of the officers shouted, "Wrong house," which ended the siege without shots fired, but the family was still severely shaken. How do you go to sleep after that? Seriously, how do you go to sleep? After guns pointed at you, you realize the flashbang grenade smoke is still in the house. You got to clear that out of the home. How do you do this? Your windows are broken. How do you control the temperature at night? What do you do? These officers broke everything. There's more. The officer later admitted that the raid violated the family's constitutional rights. Still, the 3-judge panel from the 5th Circuit Court ruled, well, even though he said it, the officer could not be legally held accountable for the mishap. What? The judges concluded that while the Supreme Court says officers must make a, quote, reasonable effort to be sure that they have correct details before a raid, it was not clearly established that Lewis was required to do this. This is when judges become defense attorneys for the police. The officer says, what I did was a violation of their constitutional rights. I should have verified that information. Lewis may actually be a decent cop who admitted the truth, who said, I messed up. This is on me. Judges say, well, you know what? Not really there, Lewis. We're going to rule in this way for you because we're allowed to, because of the ambiguity of the Supreme Court ruling. It gives them leverage here. There's more. Despite the police's colossal miscalculation, the 3-judge panel of the 5th Circuit ruled that the commander of the military-style raid could not reasonably have known that he needed to ensure he had the correct address before ordering the raid, and that the case was dismissed on the grounds of qualified immunity. There it is again. Jimison's attorneys have asked the full 5th Circuit in-bank panel to reconsider the case while vowing to take the action to the Supreme Court, which has reversed several previous things by the 5th Circuit due to clear constitutional violations. Put them up full mass. I'm confident, and I don't say this much about the Supreme Court, but based on previous court rulings, I'm confident that this is not an open and shut situation. If the Supreme Court decides to take it, it may get overturned, meaning what these judges have done may get overturned based on previous Supreme Court rulings. According to court documents, the 3-judge panel of the case was made of circuit judges Leslie Southwick on the left, Carl Stewart in the center, and James Dennis on the right. Dennis, ironically, was the only judge who dissented from the majority vote and did not agree that qualified immunity should have been allocated in this case. He agreed that the officer did, in fact, violate the civil rights, constitutional rights of this family, and thus qualified immunity does not apply. Why? Because you have to qualify the immunity. And he says there is no qualification for the immunity here. He worked well outside of his job to do this. I think about the potential of emotional damage they created on these children and the mother. The physical damage to the property, the inconvenience it created to their life beyond that. All right, Tehran, this is a hell of a story. The officer said what he did was wrong. It was in fact a violation. As I said before, he may actually be a decent cop who made a horrible mistake. Judges come in, this should be open as shut. Judges come in, they basically start operating as his defense attorney, and he did not require one. He didn't ask for one.
So here's my concern. My concern is threefold. First of all, every time you say there's more, my blood boils. Every time you say there's more, I'm just like, oh. We have these 3 judges. Concern number 1, that these 3 judges were the ones who basically defended the qualified immunity clearly, even though it goes against the letter of the law. Reasonable reason. If I was supposed to pick up a television from that address and went to the wrong address and picked it up, they'd still charge me with felony.
That's right.
They wouldn't say, oh, well, it was, you tried to figure out which address. They just charged me. Okay. So we had Judge Brett Kavanaugh II and Clarence Thomas Jr. III on that bench. Thankfully, we did have one judge who gives me hope for the law for the future because he made the right ruling. Secondly, never mind the criminal charge. Let's look at the civil charge, in which civil cases have a lower burden of proof, a lower burden of proof than a criminal charge because it's between the two entities. It's not a criminal situation. I can understand qualified immunity because you don't want to set a criminal precedent for future cases. But in a civil case, you found no guilt in a civil case? How is that even possible? And the last thing is, who's watching the watchers? That's the biggest problem. So you have the police and the judges all working hand in hand. This is why we need an independent third party who is not tied to them. I know prosecutors who feel a certain way, but they're afraid to go against the judge or speak up.
That's right.
For what's right, because they're like, well, I have to deal with that judge 1,000 times. You're only dealing with them once. I have to deal with them 1,000 times. I can't have that go against me. These are the problems with our current legal system.
You make such an incredible point. That's a policy point. And that policy point is the system itself requires an independent third party because the politics that play in the everyday dynamics of just going to work with the same people that you possibly are prosecuting is never going to give you a great benefit of holding folk accountable as long as you have that social dynamic in place. All right, a man interviewing for a police job busted for being a predator. Put him up, full mask. Unbelievable story. Per an affidavit reviewed by Law and Crime. 26-year-old Stephen Roland Boatley tried to become an officer for a police department in Apopka in June 2021, but his application failed. Instead, he went to jail after admitting under questioning that he abused a young girl during games when he was a teenager. The unintended confession has led to his life felony conviction after a jury trial last Wednesday in Orange County, where Florida. Police concluded, based on disclosures made by the victim voluntarily, that Mr. Boatley was well into his teenage years when the sexual battery began, and the behavior continued into adulthood. Police noted a reasonable teenager would deem this behavior unacceptable. Meanwhile, Boatley admitted to knowingly exploiting a victim who did not or would not have understood his actions. Law and Crimes reports that the Office of the Ninth Judicial Circuit State Attorney, Andrew Bryan, said Boatley was convicted of committing sexual battery of a child under the age of 12 when the defendant was not yet 18. Boatley was found guilty largely due to his own prior admissions, even though he denied the abuse when he testified at his own defense trial. Let's put his picture up again. Okay. So what do we have here? We're going to explain it in just a moment, but I want you to understand, he went to interview to be the police. He told the police, because they do say, hey, listen, do you have anything that we need to know about that you've done? So he does confess. He just said, hey, I did this, I did that. So why is he telling the police he's a criminal? Because he assumes that's what they do. You got to think about this. He assumes this is the place. If you want to be a criminal, this is the place you apply. There's more. On June 16, 2021, Mr. Boatley was conducting a job interview with the police department for a position that he applied for as a sworn police officer. That means post-certified. The certified voice stress analysis examiner performed a voice stress examination on Boatley. This is becoming very common. During the examination, the examiner posed a question to Boatley to expand on concerning answers he provided in a pre-test questionnaire. So he wrote this down. This is kind of like a lie detector now, okay? Prosecutor said, in it, Boatley described sexually abusing a child several years ago. He admitted the same when the examiner asked him to explain further. Authorities said that Boatley admitted to sexual abusing the victim, quote, on 3 separate occasions. An affidavit in support of Bowley's arrest warrant detailed that abuse took place between the beginning of 2012 and the end of 2016, prior to a voice stress exam. Bowley had completed a written questionnaire that asked him if he had ever sexually assaulted anyone. He answered in the affirmative. He said, yeah, adding that the assaults occurred in his hometown. Quote, defendant Bowley wrote that he had, when he was 12 to 13 years old, and then the incident occurred 10 years ago. Defendant Bowley wrote as an explanation, I would play sex games with, and the person's name was provided as well, but obviously redacted, okay? But she didn't fully understand what was happening, the affidavit said. The affidavit continued, I inquired further of defendant Bowley to explain his written response. When I asked how old the victim was, he stated, I can't remember, but what I do call is, I used to play these little sexual games like oral with my little, and I know she didn't know fully what was going on, and I used to watch porn a lot, so I had like a little addiction when I was younger, end quote. This is a real story, ladies and gentlemen, all right? There's more. The shocking admission, obviously, didn't stop there. Even more surprisingly, okay? Bowley clearly stated that he knew what he was doing, and the 9 or 10-year-old victim did not. Defendant Bowley stated, me knowing what it was, she probably didn't know what was going on, and so that's why I put it there. The affidavit continued. Cops said they were able to reach the victim's mother. So now you have an actual inquiry that's turned into an investigation. So they reached the victim's mother, and the woman said she knew Bowley since he was a baby. She did not suspect anything occurring with the defendant Bowley based on their relationship. She stated defendant Bowley took a personal interest in her daughter, but thought it was normal familial relationship, court document said. The woman recalled, however, that Bowley, quote, worked 2 jobs near her residence and would come to her house between the shifts, sometimes picking up her daughter from school unannounced. The mother also remembered a time when Bowley's mother called her to warn of misconduct that could be occurring between her sons and the victim, and that she might accuse one of the boys of something. Document said that the victim became visibly emotional and stated she could not remember anything when asked about the abuse, but eventually she did. She talked about the assault, and after the assault, she blacked out, the affidavit said. The victim stated it happened multiple times on different days in the defendant's room. The victim also said that Bowley laughed about it. That's depraved. But why do you think he wants to be the police? Let me put it this way. We see more depraved activity in one particular profession than any other, and that is policing or positions of public trust, like policing. And it is because of what the industry attracts, not due to the industry, but due to the lack of accountability when criminal actions take place. You do realize if you commit an offense working at Wendy's, and working at Wendy's is a noble job. Every legal job is a noble job. But if you do it at Wendy's, you get fired because Wendy's, they have standards. You do it on the police force, you get suspended with pay, pending an investigation sometimes. Tehran, this is a hell of a story. He provided every single detail they needed for them to follow up. Now, if they would have hit a dead end and everybody said, we don't know what this guy's talking about, we can't find the victim, nothing happens. But everything he said lined up. What say you?
Well, I say that's why fathers run outside with AR-15s on Uber drivers, is because of this guy. He needs to go to jail, directly to jail. Do not pass go, do not collect $200, send him to jail. I do want to take into account that he brought up that he was 12 and 13, but he was picking her up in a presumed vehicle and bringing her home. So that's not how that works. So my biggest thing is, you made a great point when you said he was trying to be the police because these are the kind of people who are attracted to that profession, unfortunately. I think it's even worse that the police didn't hire him because he was too honest, and they were like, we don't do that honesty around here, boy. That's not what we do, go to jail. It's such a horrible situation, and that's why I do comedy, is because if we couldn't laugh, all we would do is cry.
That's right there, brother. That is so right. The balance of the collective consciousness falls on comedians. Unfortunately, this era, or fortunately, however you look at it. But you're right, you all provide a significant balance for us. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable stick and stay.
I'm wearing one of our pieces of merchandise. So the funny thing about the Dragon Squad, and that's what our viewers call themselves. That's the name of the group, but every individual chooses their own name. You might have Cincinnati Dragon. You might have Harry Potter Dragon. We have a Grandma Sunshine Dragon is one of those that I remember. These are people that like to have an element of themselves, their lives, what's significant to them reflected as a part of the community. But the concept of the Dragon Squad is just something I threw away as a joke. I was mocking the Proud Boys, these like right-wing groups that come up with a name for themselves that they think is cool, but it's actually really lame. And I thought, off the top of my head, I can come up with something that's still kind of lame, but much cooler. And so I threw out Dragon Squad, and I just moved on with my life. But everybody liked it, and so they kept it going, and so we've embraced it. And I think again, this was during the period of the pandemic. I think it was sort of nice to have a renewed sense of community, a feeling that you're a part of something when everything seems so chaotic. And as a result of that, we've got independent artists online streaming, making beautiful digital art of dragons. We've got, we've released a number of pieces of merchandise that people love sending us photos of them. And then, by the way, for me personally, people send me, like you can probably see in the background, like a knitted dragon someone sent me. There's a dragon book they sent me, dragon board games they send me. People have done like custom ironworks, making dragon bottle openers. Like the fans are super invested in diamond art and things like that. And so it's great that they send this stuff. Sometime we're gonna have to set up a wall of all of it. But yeah, it's definitely brought the community a lot closer together. The fact that we were no longer in this big studio, I felt a lot more personally attached to people. It felt very immediate. And I know that I personally needed the connection.
All right, welcome back. Not a show left. A school decides, well, we got rid of racist people and the names. Let's just bring them back. So this is a hell of a story. Put it up for mass. It gives you an idea of, what Make America Great Again can mean to some people. Schools in one Virginia county, they are now reinstating Confederate names. A school board meeting Friday morning for Shenandoah County voted to restore the names of 3 Confederate officers to schools in the district. The district appears to be the first in the country to return Confederate names to schools that had them removed after the summer of 2020. At a virtual meeting in July 2020, the summer of pandemic and protest, the board voted 5-1 to drop the names of 2 schools, from Ashby Lee Elementary and Stonewall Jackson High, that it deemed incompatible with a recently passed resolution condemning racism. The schools were renamed the next year as Honey Run and Mountain View. The change in Virginia was not welcome. People crowded into school board meetings denouncing the name change. as secretive and rushed through. After a revote ended in a tie in 2022, the name changes stood, but opponents swore that Stonewall Jackson would be revived. And on Friday, he was. The statement from one of the board members, quote, "When you read about this man, who he was, what he stood for, his character, his loyalty, his leadership, how godly a man he was. Those standards that he had were much higher than any leadership of the school system in 2020. Mr. Tom Street said this in one of the board meetings. Then he and 5 of his colleagues voted to bring Jackson and the other names back. Jackson killed people who believed that they should be free. He was a racist. Did he believe in God? Of course he did. There are many gods. The devil is a god too, according to the text. Now, this is the first measure that has been rolled back. So the county, which is more than 90% white, okay, is not alone in rolling back decisions made in 2020 across the US. A host of measures adopted in 2020, 2021, including new classroom curriculums about the nation's racial history, may have been curtailed for or eliminated in the years since. Politicians have railed against critical race theory, and schools have reinstated mascots that have been condemned as racially offensive. But until Friday, it appears that none had brought back the actual racist people who they deemed in their own resolution as being racist people until now. Many of the signs that had been taken down from Stonewall Jackson High were kept in storage rather than discarded. That was your first sign right there, as if they were awaiting return. The 3 board members who voted in 2022 to keep the new names all decided against running for re-election the next year. Response from Black residents in the county. Black people who were among the first to integrate local schools along with their children and grandchildren described the looming vote to restore the Confederate names as a slap in the face. Several speakers emphasized that Stonewall Jackson High had been named in 1959 during Virginia's massive resistance to integration. Others emphasized the irony of beginning the meeting with a pledge of allegiance to a flag that Jackson actually waged war against. You have to remember the Confederate movement was a treasonous movement against the very flag that you stand up and pledge to. So even outside of the racial context, if for some reason that makes you uncomfortable, how about the America First context that you all like to proclaim so proudly, or the Make America Great Again context that you like to proclaim so proudly? This is the treason that was done. And you want to resurrect this. Why? Because it's a great psychological tool. It's a great psychological tool that they have utilized for decades. All right, dear brother, thoughts here.
Well, once again, like Mississippi, I'm not surprised that Virginia is racist. We have a city called Lynchburg that's right next to Blacksburg. Let's remember that. I believe these schools are in Stafford County, Virginia. The reason I know this is because I actually went to school in Fairfax County, Virginia. Even though I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., the schools outside of D.C. were much better. And so I found myself going to school there. And one of the things a lot of people don't know about that area is that the schools are very new and close together. And the reason they're newer than a lot of schools in surrounding states, isn't because of Virginia's vast wealth inside the Commonwealth. It's actually because all the schools were burnt down during the after Brown v. Board of Education during desegregation. They burned the schools down rather than integrate the schools. And this is why we have the movies that we do about these schools. The idea is, if you start bringing back Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee's and start bringing back these types of names for schools, then what's the next step? It gets really tricky in Virginia because it's part of the history. People forget Virginia was the capital of the South. But I wonder if you go to other institutions or other places, do they revert to the names they had in South Africa before apartheid ended? Do they revert to having Stalin University in Russia? The idea is that went against the very fabric and foundation of the United States of America. And while, by the way, kneeling, which gets so many people mad, is a protected constitutional right of protest, this specifically, Confederacy is not, because the Confederacy was not only denounced, but was found guilty of treason, the highest crime in this country. So kneeling, which is protected, is unprotected by these people, and reverting to Confederacy, which is illegal, is protected. The question isn't the names, it's what's in the name, everything.
I concur completely. And for those who are supporting this madness, saying, well, that school board has the right to vote as they choose, I want you to be reminded of something. They don't own a damn thing. They are representatives, true. But the tax dollar is what funds the operation. These are public schools.
Exactly.
That means that you're forcing people, black people and white allies and brown folk, to fund symbols of their own oppression or the oppression of folks that they love. And that is the problem, taking public tax dollars from my paycheck in order to fund a symbol of my oppression. Dear brother, remarkable analysis today. Thank you for opining. I would like for you to tell people how they can follow you and check out your great work.
Well, for everyone tuning in, my name is Tehran. It's not a political ideology that I fall behind. And you can find me all across the board at I am Tehran on all social media platforms. My name is Tehran, like the capital of Iran. So if you don't know how to spell it, just watch Fox News. Literally, they talk about me every day. Literally, my name is brought up every single day. Find me at the Laugh Factory every single Thursday, 10 p.m., world famous Laugh Factory in West Hollywood. It's Tehran Thursday. Come in so we can laugh together to keep from crying.
Thank you, dear brother. We appreciate all that you do, man. We're gonna have you back a whole lot more. So thank you so much for being here today. All right, remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.